like striking a happy medium. You don't want to strike a happy medium. They won't be happy anymore. Namaste and in la catch, and welcome to this episode of One World in a New World. I'm your host, Zen Benefiel, and as always, I'm going to remind you of those two phrases. Namaste comes from the Sanskrit. Spoken, it's called Brahmi in India, and it means the divine in me recognizes the divine in you. In la catch comes from the other side of the world, the Mayan civilization, and it simply means I am another you. So here's a couple of ancient civilizations that have some real wisdom to offer us today, from which we can see life and others with, and the experience that that brings. Test it, see what happens. Don't believe me, try it on, see what happens, then go from there. All right, thanks. All right, so this week's guest is Jeannette Meier. She is an amazing world traveler, and she's been a lot of different places. She's a founder and co-creator of the Positive Impact Movement. She's an associate partner with KPS Iberia, which is in Spain currently. She's also the founder of Today, that's a TOO, a social enterprise for positive impact. So you can tell she's all about positive impact, right? She's got a master's and bachelor's from the University of Metaphysics in metaphysical science. So this is going to be interesting. Now, Jeannette's a global citizen, founder, co-creator. She's been at this work for 23 years. And so I think we will have a wonderful conversation, and she can share some wonderful insights and tasty tidbits of wisdom from her journey. Jeannette, welcome.
Thank you so much, and namaste. I really love that introduction. And for me, yes, namaste is very important.
Absolutely. It sets the foundation from which we can launch and go pretty much anywhere, because we've already established that honor and reverence of each other, or at least this is the intention of it, right?
Yes.
And that's all we can do is intent. Life kind of, it throws us curveballs every once in a while, and oftentimes there's a swing and a miss. Well, you have a very interesting beginning. So plus you've had this internal quest that you've been dealing with alongside of that. When you were younger, when did you first become aware of this other part of you that was connected to things around you? What did you notice, and how, where were you at the time, and how was life around you?
Yes. Well, as you said, I'm a global citizen. When you ask me about when was the first time, I remember my father died when I was 15. And I remember when he died in front of us. I said goodbye to him into the sky. And not into the body, but the sky. For me, he was leaving the body. And but those things you don't remember until you look back,
Sure.
And then 1 year after he died, since he was always traveling, I didn't acknowledge he had died until one day. I woke up with a lot of pickles in my face, nerves, and it's when I realized my father had left us. And I went to the doctor, and I remember she was taking blood out of me, and I fainted. But the fainting was feeling the body, feeling very bad, feeling the stomach, the pain, and suddenly this freedom, this light, this unconditional love around me, so beautiful. I was very conscious, and I remember saying, this is paradise, this is heaven. And I was wandering around it. I was, wow, what a feeling, until I felt again the pain in the stomach and the nausea and the coming back. And for me, I had left, I don't know how many minutes. For me, it was long, and I was only, I don't know, half a minute gone.
Sure.
So yeah, for me there's something beyond this world.
That when you were in that place, do you remember the sensation that you had along with it? I mean, I understand it from what you're saying, felt like home, right?
Yes.
Beyond anything else.
Yes.
So what else did you notice in that place, or were you aware of other levels of sensation that you were having at the time?
I was at the time I was just feeling this unconditional love and this embracement. I was safe, I was free, I was feeling so infinite.
Mm-hmm.
So
Was there a
limitless.
sound? Was there a sound or a
No,
tone that went
no,
along with it, or just
no, it was
quiet?
just this light that I cannot describe.
Okay.
No, this beautiful light, this white, but it's not white, no, all this embracement. And I just, it wasn't so long, because yes, I said, this is heaven. Wow, how this feels. And then boom,
Right.
I went back. No.
Yeah, talk about a taste of heaven, right?
Yes.
So when that, and it's a wonderful moment, and you know, we have those things that, and many do, we don't understand. We're linear thinkers, right? So when we have something like that, it's a non-linear, non-local moment that has so much information that it often takes us a lifetime just to unpack it.
Yes, yes.
Let alone internally, let alone be able to articulate what it did. Now, for you, how did that affect it? So at 15, you were just beginning to think about what you wanted to do in the world, right? Or did you already have that kind of like in mind?
No, I was very shy. I was a very, very shy girl, and then lady, I guess. I started leaving the shyness behind at 19 or something like that. And I was very insecure. And well, it took me many, many years to go back and think of this experience and really to acknowledge what had happened to me. And I think I did that only about 2 or 3 years ago. But I always say I've been a giver. No, I'm someone that always believed in love, and I've been always giving a lot of myself to others. So much that I lost myself also in that. No, I didn't know who I was, because I always was for someone else. Right. And that's when in 2004, end of 2004, I decided to redo my life and change New York, United Nations for Barcelona. And Barcelona, just because I felt Barcelona. I didn't know Barcelona to go to Barcelona. But I decided, I said, if I will love myself, and for that, I have to go to Barcelona. So I came to Barcelona now already 18 years ago, almost. And that's when I started discovering myself, loving myself. In the journey also valuing myself, because love and value doesn't come at the same time.
Sure.
And I started with this social enterprise with you today, because I believed and I always felt I needed to help others. That's part of who I am. And when I did that, I learned a lot about social entrepreneurship, and I identified myself not as a social entrepreneur, because I'm a socially conscious leader, someone that evolves through what I'm creating, and my creations evolve through my evolution.
You know, it's evident to many like you that there's this inner and outer dance that's going on, and we don't necessarily understand that we live half inside and half outside, and that the outside is actually a reflection of what's going on inside.
Yes.
It takes a lot of, sometimes a lot of trauma before we even start questioning what's going on. Why is life like this? Well, we play the victim for a while until we realize, oh, I actually created all this in order for me to learn, because there's a higher self, if you will, for lack of a better, this is what Dr. Laszlo calls it. And in that higher self, there's a determining factor of your best.
Yes.
Right. So this higher self brings you all the opportunities that escalate and sometimes truncate that process, right? Just so that you can get stuff done and move on and be in that, I've learned to call it a perfected form, fit, and function in the world.
Yes.
Right. Because
Yes.
when you're really centered, this is what naturally becomes present.
Yes.
In my opinion. I'm still, this is a theory in my mind.
Yes,
I'm
we're
testing it
learning.
because I just came up with the words just a few years ago, like when you were starting to analyze your process. And we both had something, really similar. I went through the light and beyond, and I spent a little more time there though, and because I was questioning truth. And I was asked if I was willing to die for what I believed in. What I found out after letting go, which was cosmic consciousness, that's what I was willing to die for.
Yeah.
I ended up in the light, and then it was kind of empty after a little bit because there was nothing but light. And I had enough time there where the impetuous teenager got bored, right? I was 18. And then I felt a movement. I'm in this sphere of pinpoints of light. And then I'm told that I understand their points of consciousness, whether in body or not, I'm not sure. And then the voice that invited me there picks back up and truncated, says, these are those I'm to work with in order to facilitate a new world order. And it would happen in my lifetime. So, and then, eventually it came back into my body with a gulp of air, and it's like, what a rite of passage. And what do you do with that? And it unfolds throughout a lifetime.
Yes.
Here we are 47 years later, and we're talking about this because it's time to do so. So much of this has been kept from open conversation for whatever reason. Right.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And now, because of COVID, we have this opportunity that many are taking to come out and play together, right? And learn how.
Yes.
So in that process of learning how to play better with the world, that as you were beginning, let's say when you first got to Barcelona, what were the things that you noticed early on that let you know that you were in the right place at the right time?
Yes, I remember when I took the decision to leave everything behind and come to Barcelona, I just did it. No, it was in 2 months. I had sold a house and cars and everything, and just sent the furniture to Barcelona with no address.
Sure.
And I just went.
So
and
was there something that happened prior to that? Just this inner prompting of, the inner voice telling you, go to Barcelona?
No, it was a click. I decided that I would love myself because of the relationship I had. That I had, well, I lived for the other one and not for myself, and I didn't even know what I love to eat. And one day it clicked, and I said, if he doesn't love me, I love myself, and this, what I'll do, will be the best for him and for me.
Sure.
So I said, I will leave this and I'll go. And when I arrived to Barcelona, I found the job and everything. And the day before the job, as you know, you get the fear and you say, what am I doing here? 2.5 months ago, I was over there with everything. And now I'm here with a dog. I bought a dog at that time. And I said, okay, let me write down why I am here in this moment, in this place. And I remember there were 20 points, casualties, why I was there, even in the building and everything. And I said, okay, I have to be here. This is my place. I will continue. But what the force that drove me was this inner voice, this listening to me and saying, you love yourself, no worries, and this is the best for everyone. You just do it, just continue. I was flowing, flowing.
And you gave
until that
yourself
day.
permission.
Yes. I just heard this voice that before I was hearing, you go back when you click and you awake and you click and you say, I already had heard that voice, but I didn't listen to it.
Right.
Now I'm listening. This is the intuition, no? Our inner wisdom, ourself. And when we listen to this voice, to who we are, it cannot go wrong. Because this is what I do nowadays, no? I'm daring to be who I am and create what I love. But a lot has to do with intuition, with the inspirations. I don't know what the positive impact movement is. It's something for which I'm in service. No, it's something greater than what I am, and I'm in service to that. Today, it's called the positive impact movement. Tomorrow, I don't know. And it's okay. I'm just flowing, daring to be who I am, being in integrity for who I am, loving, valuing, respecting myself. So I also do with the other ones because it's automatic, no? I live from the inside out. I live from my heart to the world. I nurture my creation, my project, the people, inspiration and empowerment, and I get nurtured. And I co-create, because this world is about co-creation. It's about being you as a whole, co-creating with another one or many others as a whole, and together we are limitless.
Right.
Together we are limitless.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of that limitlessness, in the world, there's this other, let's call it just a population, right? And maybe they're more left brain thinking, maybe they've got right brain thinking, but they're just unable to allow themselves to move into that creative space and feel nurtured and powerful and able to make the choices to move into that in trust.
Yes.
What we're experiencing now, and the world has all kinds of division, labor and hierarchies and structures and corporations, organizations, governments, what have you. And they're all hugely affected by these last 2 years of aberrant behavior. Let's just call it that, right? Because it seems it's completely against human nature, because they've attempted, whoever, the whole process, I don't want to even go that direction, just the event tended to separate and instill fear of each other. And now we're making that shift, and there's a huge wake-up call for remote viewers, or remote viewers too. Now, remote workers, got the wrong topics there, right? Maybe that was a faux pas, maybe it was a Freudian slip. Even so, in the nature of work, it's shifting. People are beginning to look at what they're doing, how it affects the world, and whether it is a positive, contribution, or something that's actually continuing the mishigas, for lack of a better, and taking things away from the world. And you mentioned earlier, whether you're in service to you or service to others, that when you're in service to others, it tends to deplete you, or did, because you hadn't learned to serve yourself yet. And I think we all go through that.
Yes.
There's an interesting theology, I guess, for lack of a better, that comes out of something called the law of one. And that, there's two choices: service to self or service to others. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, there's a third choice there, because the ultimate service to others is service to self, and the ultimate service to self is service to others.
Yes. It's about I call it the spiral of positive impact. It's about giving and receiving. It's the balancing of the giving and receiving. And it's
in transition of that, because you came and are still in a very technology related area,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You're doing
Yes.
SAPs and CRMs um, and you've worked with United Nations and UNICEF. How did you find that merging of worlds come about in your life?
Yes. You know what? I love it in the way that um, I apply socially conscious leadership also at work. Actually, I'm leading a business unit, the international business unit here in KPS in Iberia and Spain. And I have a team. They are the ones now working in the system. I don't do it anymore. I have done it for 18 years. But what I do with them, what I do at work is socially conscious leadership, because I dare to be who I am and create what I love everywhere. And I love it because it has given me the opportunity to show that it works for myself.
And it's infectious.
Yes, yes.
You know,
yes.
far more than any virus. And it's long lasting.
Yes, it's for everyone. It's planting the seed for everyone to understand that it's okay, for everyone to understand that whatever they do, they should love it. And if they don't, then let's see where we can move them so that they create what they love in any environment, in any business, everywhere. And
if you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong and you need to adjust.
You're not growing.
And there are those now, you know, the boon and life coaches in the last couple of decades, right?
Yes.
You know, when I first started 20 years ago, there weren't that many. And now there are all kinds. And yet I'm still a bit curious. I was interviewed not too long ago about being a life coach, and I was asked what my best advice would be to budding life coaches, right? And I simply said, have a life first, right? You've got to be able to understand, and there's a maturation process. Some of us go through it a little earlier than others. It's still part of what needs to be in place in order for you to have the most effective interactions, because they're experiential. They're not theoretical, although they can be intuitive. And for those who are highly sensitive, maybe that does work. I'm not going to discount it because I know how clear and precise intuition can be. And he just totally agreed with that.
I'm sorry, yes.
Right? They talk too, right? They tune in, they know what's going on, and they respond in kind. We had it just reminds me of that several months ago, my wife and I were out on the back porch. My wife's from St. Petersburg, and we were, energy was really high that night, couldn't sleep. It was 11:30 at night. We're on the back porch talking. We have a dome light that's on, and I hear this buzzing. And I look up, and it's a bee right in the center of the dome light. Now here it is, 11:30 at night. It's a honeybee, right? They don't do that normally. So here's this bee right in the center of the light. It's unwavering. And I turned to my wife, obvious message, be light.
Yes. Beautiful. Be light. Yes.
and so, you know, we were talking, I said, okay, now, and we laughed, and it was true, right? That's the nature message. Nature is always sending us messages. We're just not listening or paying attention. So I said to her, okay, let's deepen that awareness just a little bit and watch the bee and see if it widens its circle. And sure enough, took a couple of deep breaths, got centered more. The bee changed the diameter of the circle. It went from hardly having a diameter of all to having about a 6-inch diameter circle. And I said, okay, let's do that again. You know, so we deepened again, and sure enough, it changed its trajectory again. And then a few moments later, it flew off. Well, that whole experience was only maybe 60 seconds, right? And yet it was so replete with wisdom and the message that I think we got. But for most people, they would look at that, and not most people, many would say, well, that's pretty silly. That was just a bee flying in the, you know, well, maybe. And yet that intuitive notion revealed that there could be more there. All we did was pay attention and follow it. Right. So how did that kind of activity happen for you as you were developing early on in Barcelona and going through the things that you went through in order to establish the socially conscious leadership as well as the social entrepreneurship that you're engaged in?
Yes, well, when I started, I did, in that case, I did really systems when I came back now. So I was missing this helping others, supporting others. And that's when I started in 2012. I started with You Today, You Too Today,
Right.
the social enterprise, to give visibility of those that were already doing good. No? Because I didn't feel for me to start anything, because I'm a global person, I need to support many and all over the world. And for me to start a charity, I didn't know what to start, and it would have been a little thing for so many people already doing things. So I started with You Today, and in my work with You Today, I learned several things. First, that when you love yourself, it doesn't mean exactly that you value yourself. Because I was loving myself, but I wasn't valuing myself.
You were still giving the store away.
Yes. Yes, and I did it many times. So and also I listened to many others, and I lost all my savings because of the websites and also many things, no? And because as a social entrepreneur, you had to do things, you had to give solution to a problem, you have to be fixed, and you have to have websites, and so
right.
I went into this road, and but I learned to value myself, and also not to partner with others just because alone I wouldn't be able to do it, no? And I also saw that I wasn't a social entrepreneur, because I said I'm someone that is evolving as I evolve, my projects evolve. So I really did around 20 business models of 100 pages in all my You Today life, let's say. And I said, no, I will continue evolving, and the website will continue changing, because I am like that. And in the way, I found people like me that had the same issue. And also when I was going to events, I didn't fit in, because for me, the most important thing behind the project is the person, because based on who you are, you create.
Right. And entrepreneurship is about business and ultimately money.
Yes.
And right. Well, and the socially conscious leader is not about the money.
No.
They're about the people.
Yes.
And doing what you love.
Yes. Yes. And about self-leadership, first of all, about living from the inside out, from the heart to the world, creating based on who you are. It's about, yeah.
Now, what's so daunting about that concept to others? What do you find is the, because I'm in the same boat, right? Yes. That's how we connected.
Yeah.
How do you see that crack in the cosmic egg, if you will, that allows that information to reach others that have a really difficult time with that reception?
With the reception, because they are fixed in social entrepreneurship?
Well, because they're fixed, period. They're in a mindset rather than a mind flow, right? And this is kind of a non-specific area, and yet it is a way of being.
Being, yes, it's a way of being.
That doesn't fully serve the individual or the rest of society in that place, although it may be financially viable.
Yes.
Right? And often is.
Yeah.
There's still, throughout the pandemic, I was looking at, okay, we're finally coming to terms with understanding that there's a profit over people and planet agenda that's been going on for quite some time. So what we are doing as socially conscious entrepreneurs, first of all, and more by socially conscious leaders, we're flipping that to people and planet over profit. That doesn't do away with profit, because we still have to have some kind of economic viability to live in the world
Yes.
currently. And until that changes, we're kind of stuck with it.
Yes.
So how does that, again, how would you explain the process of becoming more self-loving and self-valuing?
Yes, you know, it's very difficult for someone that is fixed to explain something that they never.
Let's pretend it's easy.
Yes,
Right?
but
Let's just pretend for a moment that there's an easy way to do it. What might you, or how might you approach that from that place?
well, as I always, I'm being the example of what I talk. I'm being a socially conscious leader. I'm daring to be who I am in freedom. I'm daring to create what I love. And I've tried many times then to explain something like this to someone. And I understand, I've understood you cannot explain it unless they see it in you, unless they get inspired by what you are doing, by who you are being from in the truth, from the heart.
Right. It's being before doing.
Yes, because when you explain people, even if it's simple, but they're closed up and they have a different mindset, if it doesn't touch their heart, it's difficult for them to open up. And how do you touch the heart of someone? By being,
right,
by being that what you are.
Right.
And that's simple. It's simple.
Now, is there's another step that I think we often miss, and that's the resonance that you have with others just by merely showing up before a word is spoken. And this is reflective of not just the law of attraction, which is kind of based on that, the magnetism, but it goes back even further into ancient indigenous philosophy of the three brains. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, so what they present is that we have three brains. The first is our gut.
Okay.
The second is our heart.
Yes.
And the third is our head.
Yes.
And Western men, for the most part, women, we start at the head, and we have no idea what's in the body. Whereas in that sense of, and even though we do that, there's still something that we sense in the moment that triggers everything else. Could be good, could be not so good, but there's that sense that is a gut feeling. That's the intuition in operation.
Yes.
And that's where the heart opens up to be able to be touched, right? In how we show up. Because if we're conflicted inside in any way, others are going to feel that. That's just part of how it is. And yet when you focus and you show up, how does that, when you're in that kind of place, or are you ever in that kind of I'm a little bit confused place and wondering how to proceed in that moment as to how to serve it best?
No, I'm not confused. I always connect with my heart. I always connect to the heart, and I am. That's also what we practice in the positive impact movement through the conversations, is to really be and share, listen with respect, value, and love. And there might be different opinions of a specific topic, but we all listen and are there. We learn to be, we learn to observe our patterns, observe what's happening inside, how we react, no? And it's just by exploration, experiencing, and practicing, no?
Right,
That's the
right.
only
Now
way
that's a really challenging, let's say, development process to become that self-aware of what's going on inside of you, before you check in any place else.
Yes.
Because we usually do just the opposite. It's like, well, okay,
Yeah,
what's going on in here? Where do I need to fit in? Right?
yes,
Or how do I need
what's
to fit in?
happening, and then let you go by everything that the mind is saying. No, it's really being here. I called it once active meditation. No, it's at the end, I'm listening to you, I'm being here, and I'm meditating. I'm
Right.
being me.
The Hindus call
I'm
that bhakti yoga.
Bhakti yoga.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
bhakti yoga. It's like a walking meditation.
And
So
in this conversation, I'm being like that. You are calming me. I'm listening to you. I'm connected to you, and I'm okay. And I'm tremendously grateful for being here and to co-learn with you and co-create with you
sure.
and with everyone else that is around. But yes, this is something I've been learning, and we've been practicing in PI Move in the last 2.5 years. And it's really beautiful to experience, no? To be able, yes, not to be afraid.
I think you mean it's difficult to explain. It's easy to experience.
Yes.
It's that direct experience that then gives others the opportunity to lock in a feeling of harmony in the moment.
Yeah.
And harmony doesn't necessarily mean bliss, right? It means, to me, it means the management of chaos. Right? Or if you want to see it that way, because there's so much going on. It seems like chaos because we don't recognize the patterns, and they're there.
Yes,
We just aren't astute enough to see them yet. There's no anomalies in the universe. There's no anomalies in us, other than self-created ones. Right? Now, with your work with Pim and and my work, I've been doing similar things. I started back in the late 90s of compiling information and ended up with a website, planetarycitizens.net, with the same kind of idea. And I find that, this is, yeah, I love it too. Right? It's like, okay, so that kind of activity, then let's look at the thought-atmospheric actions of life and how we interact and find each other in that process, because it is self-directed with a big S.
Yes.
And that it is an integrative factor in the evolution of our planetary civilization, in its longevity, if you will, and ultimate, not just sustainability, thrivability, because we are destined to step up in a greater way. And there's lots of evidence about that. What else do you see around you that offers you the evidence that then you can turn and share with others when you say, oh, you know about this? Well, here's an example, right? What kinds of things do you have in your quiver, with your heart strikes with the arrows, right?
You mean things that I see?
Things that you see that are happening that you can also reflect on and show to others as demonstrations of, okay, here's the philosophy in action.
Yeah. Yes. Well, like what you just said some seconds ago, the fact that, for instance, you have a page that is similar to the positive impact movement. And I've seen lately that many others that are also creating similar things. They are similar because the creations are based on the uniqueness of each of us, but our vision is the same. We all envision a world where there's individuality, uniqueness, love, where there is growth, and where there is co-creation. And we all are creating based on that.
Now, co-creation sounds really simple. What's it really mean? No.
Creations are projects, our community, our movements, our yes, what we we say we are doing our work, our purpose,
Right.
no? And it has, I've mentioned this the other day to a friend. I see this same vision in everyone, and what I see, it's a world that we all ourselves creating on our unique way, and hopefully every time we are more selves, and this all will create the new earth, is creating the new earth.
Yes.
It's because we are daring now, we are daring to be who we are and create what we love. I encounter every time more people that who are being themselves and are showing up as themselves and are sharing as themselves, that before, and yes, before COVID, before the situation, people were more careful, no, let's say, but I don't know, it's flourishing, and it's in the last month, and I'm very happy for that, because I see everyone walking the same path. Today maybe not be many as I see, I know that we will be many, but yes, slowly this flower is growing in each of us.
Well, we each have a
Our
thread in the
heart.
tapestry, and we're finding our place in the tapestry
Yes,
as
yes,
it comes into order.
yes.
And I happen to feel, and there seems to even be some scientific proof behind it. Valentina Morovina, who's a Russian academician, had a dissertation that's been online since 2018, and she did a 10-year study of the scientific evidence of our ascension. Right. And so she's looking at, now she's got a degree in astrophysics and microbiology. Right. And so this really astute, wise woman started asking questions and finding things, and then shared it with the world. It's called a global mutation in humanity. And she speaks in Russian, but it has English subtitles. So it's
I will look at that.
Quite quite informing. So there's that side of things. So there's all of this kind of evidence that when we start looking, and that's the key point.
Yes.
It's, you have to start looking around, asking questions, and where are these things? Where are these people? Where's my tribe? Right? Now, in this tribal reunion, what do you think are the toughest things that we have in front of us to face in order to move the bar, or to move the needle, or however you want to call that?
Yes, I think we have to show the power of love, uniqueness, and co-creation.
Okay.
To not to fight, I don't know, to light up the fear in the world.
Okay. Where do you feel,
fear.
and the reason I'm asking that question, I'm kind of leading you into, it's not a corner, but another atmosphere, if you will.
Yeah.
For example, the movement that I'm now executive director of, the Live and Let Live movement, there's two aspects of it. There's a legal and a moral. And the legal side is non-aggression. Right. So we have many laws and legislation that allows aggressive behavior from, across the spectrum. So that's one thing. And this is the reason I asked the question, what's the hardest thing for us to face and actually move through in order to make these shifts effective? Because we can't just have it in here. It's got to reflect in the world. And the way it does that is by going inside the systems and changing them. Yes. Just like it's going inside our system and changing it, yes, we have to do the same out there. So addressing the legal and legislative side of things is a daunting process that, quite frankly, scares the bejeebers out of most people, because they don't understand it, first of all, and that's usually, we're afraid of the unknown, so that exacerbates the sense of fear that's there. Although there are ways to do so, and the movement's founded by an attorney's firm. So there's information there in the foundation to be able to do that. In a totally free society, everything's legal, right? Except aggression.
The law of mankind.
So people have a challenge when you say, okay, well, here's, whatever you want to put in your body, you can. no matter the effect. If you choose to do so, we have no right to tell you not to. We can encourage you not to, but it's your choice. That's the moral side of things, the let live. It doesn't matter, we create a psychologically safe and intellectually humble environment. I think that's another way of expressing what you did earlier. And then recognize that you may not have the same moral standards as I do or somebody else does. And yet, as long as you're not an aggressor, you can live your life however you so choose, because you're the ruler of your temple.
Yes, it's you. Yeah, it's the respect, no? So everyone's. Well, I have in my description of LinkedIn, for instance, says I envision a world without governments, and I really do. Why? Because I believe in the power of being, the freedom to be who you are and create what you love of each of us. And I also believe that going against something makes it stronger, no? So the system, the new system has to grow from within.
And if there's also the philosophy that whatever you resist persists. So if you fight something, you tend to give it more power.
Yes.
Instead of just saying, okay, look, we're not going to fight you. We're going to use the rules that were set up in order to change the system.
Yes.
The way that you guys design, it's your doing. We're just utilizing what's available.
Yes.
Right. And then that's kind of the whole picture.
Yes.
It's just finding out what's available, because everything is already in place. We just need to learn how to adapt it for this global environment. Now, you mentioned no government, and I agree. Governments, it seems like their purpose is to separate territory, and that's it.
Separate and differentiate.
And then fight over it.
Yeah. And differentiate people. In the way of division, not differentiate, but division
absolutely.
Of everyone.
So, future vision, no governments. How do we manage the resources and distribution of products and services, and from do you see like a planetary administration that some kind of a council or something like that, with representatives from what used to be those nations or governments?
Yeah, one thing, then the how we never know. The how, I've learned that you can define so many hows. From this point of view, I don't know what's going to happen and how we will be co-creating something like that.
That's a very honest
because my mind and your mind are not capable of envision anything like it will be now. So the way to go forward is to really dare to be who you are in freedom and create what you love, get together with others, do from the heart, create communities, however it's going to be, because it will be in co-creation. We will co-create with this limitless potential, and from there we will, from the inside out, create a new system. How? I don't know, because we're not even
well, and with your background in technology, it's the same kind of process. You don't know what you're going to end up with, because you're co-creating this program or platform or something that you have. Now, let's say that it's not that we don't have intention.
No.
Because we put our attention, intention, and interaction toward a best possible outcome.
Yes.
As opposed to a specific possible outcome. And that seems to be where this notion of understanding the difference between competition and collaboration comes in, and that we're moving towards that. Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel like we are actually moving, this is kind of a superfluous question because you've already answered it in so many ways, of the movement toward the Vedantic philosophy of a unitive consciousness, which is where everything is in its perfect place and works together well? Doesn't mean there's perfection,
No, we
It's
are
just that
perfectly
everything is
imperfect.
aligned. Yeah,
Yes, we are perfectly imperfect.
right. And
Yes, I think so. And one differentiation I want to make between collaboration and co-creation also is when I started to talk about collaboration at the beginning, people have a mindset that collaboration, you have to give something from yourself to work to a common goal. Okay.
okay,
And
kind of socialistic.
yes, and co-creation is wholeness together, co-creating something with a vision, but it's a respect towards your wholeness and my wholeness, the integrity. I don't give anything up, you don't give anything up. You go in with me and we together
Kind of like
are
synergy,
getting,
where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
yes,
And there's nothing that is given up
no,
in the
nothing.
process except your thoughts that it can't happen. Right?
Yeah, there
No,
the
that's fine.
limitations out.
Yeah. And to have open and transparent communication is imperative. You've got to be able to talk
Everything.
about everything that's going on
Everything.
inside of you in the process. This is
Yes.
one of the things that Otto Scharmer brings out with U theory, or theory U, he calls it, and it is the co-creation process of co-presencing is what
Yes.
he calls it. And it's that ability to just
Yeah.
let everything else go, be in the moment with a question. Question could be about, multiple things, from organizational development to product development or community development. Doesn't really matter,
Yes.
because this process applies. And this is kind of what you're talking about, from what I understand, is being able to come into this co-creative space.
Yes. And that's what I'm seeing lately. And when your question before, I'm seeing that we have switched, many have switched from collaboration to co-creation, because you and me, we are here co-creating, you with what you have, what you do, who you are, me with what I am, what I do. And we are getting together here and co-creating something that we didn't know what to expect. And we didn't expect anything, just the beingness together. And that's it.
We just agreed to come have fun together.
Yes. Right? And this is the beauty, because what comes out is you never imagined before. And that I'm seeing every time more is the co-creative aspect and not the collaborative aspect. I see the collaborative aspect still in the business, but outside of it, it's starting to change, but still is a lot of collaboration here. But co-creation in what we do, in us socially conscious leaders, is co-creation.
Now, from a guy's perspective, all right, let's look at that, the kind of guy thing, right? What is this with all this feminine energy, right? Because that's the, and I say that because I understand it. I've got probably, on the EQ scale, I'm right in the center. So my masculine and feminine is pretty balanced. So surprising. I really didn't know until I started inquiring. This also, from a male, one of the reasons I say this is that in my interview with Jeff Mishlev years ago, he'd mentioned that one of his friends who talks to others says that they see us as mostly alpha males at the head of pyramids that are competing with each other over stuff, right? And the advanced races have learned that those silos cannot exist. There has to be a co-creation process. Well, the collaboration seems to happen phases, right? So the collaboration phase is where the guys might, and maybe, and I'm going to ask this, is this kind of what you see in the guys? Because the guys are usually the ones that are pretty uptight, right? And they don't like this unknown kind of free flowing, there's got to be compartmental objectives and things like that. Because that's how we're raised. It's kind of how we're programmed.
Yes.
How do you address that and move that masculine resistance? I don't want to say stuck, because I don't think it's stuck. I just think it's resistant at this point.
Um,
How do you work with that?
in the experience at work, but in my prior company, there was a lot of that, and I wasn't ready to show them the co-creative part. But in this company, I'm very thankful because I've seen the switch, the switch on when it was almost 5 years ago when I went in and started and I wanted to do what I'm doing today. At the beginning, there wasn't an understanding of what it was, you know, but so I was giving up a little bit and doing the work they wanted me to do, but I also was doing my work, what I do, no? And finally, about 1 year after, I remember them saying, Jeannette, now I understand, we understand what you're doing, and we didn't imagine we needed someone doing what you're doing here in this company, but we needed.
You don't know
So,
what you don't know, right?
you don't know what you know until you experience. Everything has to do with the experience, no? So it's why I always say, be the example and stay in integrity with who you are, continue. Don't push too hard because you won't get anywhere.
Oh, no, you can't push or pull. This is one thing that
it's this
cosmically,
dancing.
it just doesn't work. Exactly. It's a dance. You listen to the music. You've got a tune playing in your heart. I got one playing in mine, and they're usually fairly similar, so we can find a beat to dance to in the process. And yet there's the push and pull, the resistance, the prescriptive, right? Those are the old patterns that we're moving away from, and we're moving, Dudley Lynch calls it, from the alpha mind to the beta mind. The alpha mind steeped in competition. The beta mind understands oneness.
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily understand how to engage it yet, and we're figuring that out. I mean, and I'm sure you're at least aware of, if not in agreement with, the Mayan calendar and the transition between ages, right? And so solstice of 2012, winter solstice, we hit this apex, and it was an escalation of consciousness and awareness. Then what? Right? It's like, okay, what do we do? It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of time. The apocalypse is actually uncovering knowledge. That's what the word means. And so in that uncovering, what's happened, because we've now had this shift in awareness embedded in humanity, or at least enough to where it brought those things that aren't resonant to the surface, of which it's like the purging that took place. COVID was the final step of that, it seems, if we would look at it from that perspective. And now we have the opportunity, now that it's exploded, we have the opportunity to reassemble, just like the spin of energy. You know, you spin it one way, it expands. You spin it the other way, it contracts. Well, we're both, you know, from a heart perspective, we're spinning out and spinning in with each heartbeat. And we don't see that yet because we don't have the technology to visualize or to even perceive that's happening. There are some theories that, you know, like heart math and Dan Winter stuff, and you know, where they're looking, and there's many others who talk about this spiral of activity, and it's fascinating, right? And you know, just what I exposed over the last minute, you know, filled volumes of material over the years in trying to explain the understanding of it.
Yes.
Now, do you find that educational, informative stage, let's just call it the book learning, right? Do you find that book learning is being truncated by the experiential understanding now? That the time is less, it takes less time to understand more?
It takes less time to understand more. Yes. One thing, like you were saying before, things are emerging. We are observing. We are learning. No, and yes, we're more aware. So it takes less time to learn, to grow, and but I don't know what was the question related to it, but
You got
also
it.
reading books. I never was a bookworm until 5 years ago, and I read a lot now. I
Sure.
love it. I just take pieces of every book because I know that there's no one size fits all. No,
Mhm.
the authors have created what they have created based on their experience. I have to read, understand, and experience myself, not necessarily following their method, because by following their method, I might lose my method, which has happened to me. So, but it's taking from everywhere, it's dancing with everything and taking the information and experiencing. Yes.
Mhm.
And we're learning faster because of that, because of the awareness and the experiencing, the exploration, experiencing, and the practicing.
Right. And it's
Yes.
interesting how that actually becomes more, our lives become more harmonious as a result. One of the other, there was conversation with people from elsewhere, the guy that ran Canada's UFO investigation program in the 1950s. He asked a lot of questions because he had the opportunity to get, okay, how do you guys see us? What can we learn? What do you want to share with us? And one of the things was in relation to time and how we measure it by a clock. They measure it by the change of entropy, right?
Yeah.
So what you just said about when you're doing and you know, the time condensed, you can do more in less time. Well,
Yeah.
why is that? Because there's less entropy, right? So that half inside, half outside lifestyle
Yes.
is now finding more balance between the two. And, you know, I keep getting that, excuse me, the infinity sign, right? It just kind of popped in because there's that reciprocal flowing. It's like the Mobius strip, right? That flows back and forth between you and whatever it is in your environment that is for you in that moment.
Yes. Yes.
Now, how do you recognize that? You know, a lot of people call them serendipitous moments, synchronistic events. How do you, or how would you advise others to be more attentive, or kind of maybe what to look for, how to look for, what they might sense in the looking?
Yeah. You know, I don't think it's about looking to
Okay,
something, because that's expectations, and expectations come from here, from the mind.
right. A
No,
better
it's
word would have been observe.
yes, the observation, and it comes through practice, no, because you start observing what you're thinking, and when you're I remember many years ago starting with that and starting to be, because of this relationship I had, no, I had to work myself a lot in the mind, and in yes, in understanding more, no, about myself and everything. One moment.
Mm-hmm. It's fine. I just wanted to pipe in a little bit. So in the process of this, um, you know, you mentioned watching your thoughts, becoming aware,
Yes.
observing your thoughts. It's been said we have 70,000 thoughts a day. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, it's, um, or it could be one way to say, oh, you got so many thoughts that you don't ever want to try to manage them, right? That's a possibility,
Yes.
because there are those that would like us not to understand ourselves to that extent. At least we think so. That may not be true too. That could just be a
Yes.
bias that is remnants of an old belief system that's still kind of wrestling around for removal, right? Or recycling. So in that 70,000 thoughts, what are some of the, what's a way to just become aware of how on the fly, as you're walking daily, what do you use, or what kind of practice do you have to be able to observe your thoughts better?
Yes, I remember starting mostly because of this. I had thoughts of culpability, how I say it, of well, having left everything behind and started over, no?
Right.
So it was being aware of those kinds of thoughts and change them. When I was suddenly I was thinking of something like that, and I said, oh no, why are you thinking like that? Let's change it, no? And so it's how I started being aware of what I was thinking in all the time. And it took me many years, and still I'm learning,
Sure.
because we are always learning, but at least it's being aware of saying, okay, you're thinking this, don't think about that, because at the end, it's not us here, it's someone here that it's interacting
Right,
with
or
our
up here,
thoughts.
or wherever
Or
it
here.
is. Yeah.
Yes. So it's this, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? Why am I thinking this? Change it. Change the attitude. Why am I feeling like this? Let it go. Let it pass. Feel it and let it go. But it's practice. In life, everything is practice.
Oh,
and
practice,
the way
and
we
practice,
and
and
practice
practice,
and
and practice.
and the way we do it is the other thing. It's our own way.
Yeah.
But at the end, it's really getting aware, and you're doing something. Maybe you can remind yourself when you are, now that I look at the watch, and I can think, oh, what was I thinking? No, what am I thinking? And you make it a routine every time you look at the watch. And then you start doing it without looking at the watch.
Right. So you change the internal dialogue.
Yes.
That's been happening, because it's been happening unconsciously.
Yes.
You now,
another word.
With that practice, you're switching from an unconscious behavior to a conscious one, and that has choice.
And it has choice, yes.
And it may, and what I think I'm hearing you say is that in the process, whether you're reading books, looking at other people's processes, gleaning what works for you from that, because you may not have your own process for a while. And so by looking at others' process and trying that on and experimenting and just allowing that to evolve, seeking your own resonance, for lack of a better, with it, because you'll feel that when you land on something. And that should have been a question. What do you feel when that happens, right? Because we're talking about stuff that both of us are engaged in, and we're just reflecting on how we do things. And this conversation is not just for us, although it's wonderful. It's intended to have a repository of things that then others can tap and learn for themselves and grow through and with.
Yes. One thing I want to highlight, really, because I've gone through that, is not to follow blindly other people's methods or way of doing things, because you can lose your own way. For instance, for me, it was very easy to go into meditation and go into these feelings of the light and nirvana or whatever. But I didn't know that that was something that many are looking for, because for me it was just sitting there, and I could be 1 hour, 2 hours happy there.
Oh yeah.
And then I started reading and applied other one's methods, and I lost this instantaneity, this coming into my meditation. So I'm relearning now, and that was many years ago. So I'm relearning now to really again go into it. So it's not really about blindly following others' way of doing. Really trust how you do it and why you're doing it. And so that's something we always have to keep in mind. There's no one size fits all.
Right. Many paths, same mountain.
Yes, 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 that's nice. Yes.
And it's a wonderful journey, and especially if you have someone to share it with. And even in the process of the learning, do you find that there have been those, for lack of a better, significant others, has nothing to do with relationships, but the significant others that have spiced your life with tasty tidbits of insight and information that you needed just in the moment? That was the question about the serendipitous and synchronicity in your life. How do you recognize that? And this might be a good example to explain. Maybe you've had someone specifically that you could kind of recall and draw up to share.
Yeah, for me, really, the positive impact movement and the co-creators have been people, co-creators, friends that have been learning with me. We together have been going through a process of understanding by ourselves, through the sharing, through the reflecting back, through the mirroring, what it is to connect to the heart. That's the other thing. I've been always very much related to my feelings, no? And my heart speaks, I translate.
Yeah,
so,
me too.
Yeah, I love that.
Water
I
sign.
recognize, yes.
Right.
And so with PI Move, I've been lucky to have people like me in the same discovery. We went through a process for 1.5 years, meeting every week and exploring, experiencing, and practicing. Doesn't mean that now we continue with that, because positive impact movement continues evolving. It's a spiral of learning. We continue doing that, but in that 1.5 year, I learned so much from all of them. So synchronicity in the way that, yes, we came all together, we had the COVID, and so we had the opportunity to meet every week, 2 times, 3 times, and practice.
And you didn't know each other beforehand?
Nothing, zero.
Right. So this was a way that the universe, and I call it the cosmic conspiracy.
Yes.
Right? That's how my wife and I came together, and that's how most of my life has been. And I love it. It's,
I love it.
And it can be so uncomfortable at times, because there is that unknown, and you have to rely on your faith, love, and trust that it all works. Right. And we, as imperfect humans, tend to want to go into that doubting Thomas place. Right. Even with all the evidence and the experience that says, no, you don't need to go there. Right. There's still that little voice that says, right. And we all have it, I think. And if we didn't, and that's part of that questioning, right, is that helps us to put our truth on the chopping block and whack away at it so that we know it's solid.
Yes. It's what makes us come back and realize or integrate things. Yes. Which is so important to continue growing.
All right. Back to your watch, because we're kind of closing on time. It was a good segue. We just got back around to it. I love how tangential life can be, and always bringing it back full circle. Right. That's the trick of it, I think.
Yes.
And when the art and skill of being able to communicate well.
And then
do that.
Any relationship is based on that, like you were saying at the beginning. Any relationship is based on our communication, our honesty, our humbleness, and our truth, showing our truth.
And with that, what kind of parting gift would you think appropriate for the audience? Something that just a little, a nugget of something they could take with them to apply in their lives to test for their own, kind of like I did with the opening, having them test that mindset or that mind flow.
Mhm.
I'm still working on changing my language, right? Um, so what, do you have a tasty tidbit to offer?
Well, really dare to be who you are, and dare to be who you are means if you feel something, that doesn't hurt anyone else in doing and saying, then say it or do it. Dare in the moment, because
Risk.
or you risk. When you have an inspiration, do it. Respond to the inspiration. Don't let it go, because those are what opens up us, what expands us. And those are the little moments you get something, you have a glimpse, just go with it, because it will be from the heart and nothing will be wrong when
And
it's
it
from
has
the
a
heart.
cumulative effect.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Jeannette,
So
this
there.
is just been awesome.
Thank you.
It's every bit of what I supposed it would be and more, right? Because we really did have no expectations. It's like, okay, I wonder what this would be like. Yeah, let's just dive in and have fun. And
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, then. Thank you so much. I love it. I get inspired with what you have in the background also, this infinite universe that we are.
yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much
thank
for
you.
this opportunity.
May we all be able to work better together soon.
Yes, we will. We will.
Right?
We are.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And
Namaste.
namaste. And
Namaste.
in la catch. Thanks
In
so
la
much for sticking with us for this episode. I'm sure you picked up a lot, and come back and see us next time. Until then, I'm Zen Benefiel, your host, and I'll see you next time.